Aloha and welcome back to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. We are here celebrating. First off, I'm sorry, I'm just seeing it now. That is Iowa Joe, not Brian Rago. I know we don't put the video up anymore, but it's going to throw me off and make me giggle a little bit on this episode as we go along. But your Packers are 2-0. They've defeated two teams that went relatively deep into the playoffs last season. You had the division winning Detroit Lions who were 15-2, and you knocked them off in week one. And you come out on Thursday Night Football, short week, quick turnaround. And yeah, you have a little bit of a leg up because you're the home team, but still, you take out a team in the Redskin or the Commanders who made the NFC Championship game that a lot of people were talking up as a potential Super Bowl contender. And, all these questions about, how big of a problem would they be for the Packers and all that. And the answer turned out to be not too much. But Joe, we sit here basking in the glory of our 2-0 start. The Lions took the Bears out behind the woodshed in a way that I think was pretty expected. And the Vikings are here struggling with the pretty mid Falcons in Minnesota. So the Packers have a chance to be sitting alone atop the division come the end of tonight.
I'll be honest, I didn't watch any football today. I think I caught like a minute of the Eagles-Chiefs game because that was the game that we were seeing here. I didn't watch anything during the day because I kind of overslept my alarm. I don't know. It's one of those things when you hit that comfortable spot in the bed and you know you don't have to get up to do anything the rest of the day. You just kind of lay there. And that's what I did. So I missed a lot of the early games. But I did see the Lions saw the score of it. And of course, we'll get into talking some of our stuff later on with the games and that. But overall, yeah, Packers are 2-0. The defense is starting to look legit. I've been posting the one gif of Hawkeye from the Avengers, please don't give me hope. Because it's like, I've been burned by this before, that the Packers come out and they look legit and then they come across this just one team and it all seems to fall apart. But everything's looking legit. The defense specifically, I know Micah's kind of getting a little, I know he said in one of his locker room talks that he's kind of getting fed up with the snap counts, that he just wants to go out and play. So maybe that'll change things a little bit. And when I watch him, I feel like I'm watching Clay Matthews all over again. And not because they're the same type of player, but because there's so many calls that aren't being made, and it's because it's who it is. And this will probably be one of our things that we talk about later, but there were numerous times where it's like, that's holding. That's hands to the face. That's, why aren't you calling that? And then they would call it like once in a great while, but they're constantly doing it. And that's just kind of the disruption that he is on the defensive front that the Packers technically have lacked for. Even, you can say, lacked it through the Rashawn Gary years, because he hasn't even been quite that disruptive. He's been a force for sure, but not to the degree of a Micah Parsons.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing, I know it's the tail end of baseball season, but bringing in Parsons, it really just does reshift the hierarchy for the pass rush room. And, Rashawn has been a pretty good player thus far in his career, but he's not that guy that you want taking on double teams and stuff. He's really good at what he does, but he's not in that upper echelon of guys that Micah belongs to, as a guy that it's like can take double, triple team, those extra pair or a couple pairs of eyes and still
he could be, though.
He could be.
Would stop doing certain things and concentrate on what he's good at.
And hey, and that's the part of this that I don't think is getting enough recognition yet, is Gutekunst and LaFleur attacked this from two angles. They both attacked it from their side of the bench, so to speak, where LaFleur went, got rid of Rebrovich, brought in DeMarcus Covington, and the fact that, like Rashawn's sack came this week without Parsons on the field kind of thing, and you're seeing all these other guys who have seen it. Hercules has seen an uptick in his productivity this season. Wyatt has continued the climb, but I do think his is a lot more technique driven stuff than last year, where it was a bit of like his athleticism, him being able to read things a little better and stuff. And obviously on the Groot side of it, that side's obvious. He goes out and drafts Baron Sorrell and also trades for some Micah Parsons guy. And just the way that totally reshuffles how they've been able to do business on that side of the ball. And it's really just absolutely accelerated the growth of this defense moving forward. So really good to see there. And yeah, like it remains to be seen how this plays out, but the start is as good, maybe even better than a lot of us had hoped for.
For sure. So do you just want to jump into our stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
Mmm, fresh cheese.
All right.
right.
So what are you going to lead us off with?
I'm going to lead us off with this one's a little weird. It kind of goes into two categories, but the offense kind of did what it wanted to do throughout this game. And I know some people are going to scratch their head about that, but, if not for about 2 feet worth of air on a few balls, Jordan Love has a 450-yard passing day, like 350 of them before halftime, and like 3 touchdowns in that span. And it just goes to show they are so in control of every aspect of the game. LaFleur came up with a brilliant game plan to take advantage of Washington's deficiencies on defense in terms of they are the oldest defense in the league. They are the oldest team in the league, I should say. And it was no more evident than in Kraft's 57-yard reception where, LaFleur crafts up this really beautiful fake action. They fake that short toss to the right. It draws the whole Washington defense to the offense's right. And you just watch Bobby Wagner on that play, and he doesn't know where he's running to. And this is a guy who's been as one of the most instinctive playmakers at the second level of a defense for the past decade and a half. And he looked like he was flat out running in mud while also not knowing what he was looking at, because he runs towards the sideline and then he like half sees that Jacobs doesn't have the ball, half realizes Kraft is behind him. And when he goes to turn, he looks like a 18-wheeler trying to take like a turn off the highway kind of thing. And he does the thing that every Green Bay Packers fan is totally aware of, where it's the hand up, like pointing, like who's got that guy kind of thing. And so they had that. You had the opening drive where they drove down the field, got into a little bit of penalty trouble. You have what should have been an absolutely gorgeous throw to Jaden Reed, if not for a holding penalty. And you're like, Jordan is a split second late on the throw to Golden in the end zone. And if he throws it a little bit deeper in the end zone, he might have a touchdown regardless of being a little late coming back to the backside on that throw. He's off by less than 6 inches on the throw down the middle of the field to Golden. But the most important thing to me, and I do completely understand the frustration with a lot of fans, where it's like, if you just put teams away, you don't have to work. Like, garbage time comes earlier if you go up an extra possession here and there. But I do want to slow play that, because I want to see how LaFleur operates on a normal week of schedule. You had the 2 games in 5 nights. Because when this game went to 17-10, what happened? LaFleur dials everything up and is just like, all right, let's put this shit to bed. Let's put this game on ice, and let's all go home happy kind of thing. They go right down the field, put the thing back up, get the 4 and out, stop on defense, go. And then even that drive, you can kind of tell he's like, it could have been a little more. He calls a shot play on first down kind of thing. That one, it's off, like, he's a little deep on the throw. Is Wicks a little shallow on his route, whatever kind of thing. But it's a safe shot play, a safe, aggressive play. And then after that, it's like, let's get to that 3-score lead and we're good with it kind of thing. So it's just really good to see that in this point of the season where teams aren't humming at peak efficiency, and you did see that out of the offense where you have some penalties. You're down 2 starting linemen, so you're like already, LaFleur is already calling the game different. He's calling big personnel, but he's also calling the game from shotgun and pistol a lot more. You saw the whirly bird come back and stuff. And it's kind of like, LaFleur was on cruise control in mostly the best ways he could be for this game. That's how I took it. And that's my fresh thing is like they're just in total control on offense, down Jaden Reed after the first like 3 minutes of a football game, down two starting old linemen. You're playing slightly left hand. You're a pitcher who's down his best pitch, but you're like, I can still get you out with my secondaries kind of thing, or like late career Pedro who's like, I don't throw 97 anymore, but I'll get you out with 92 on the corners kind of thing. It was that kind of night for the Packers offense.
Right, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later because I am going to throw a little bit of it into the stale portion of it.
I agree, and like I said,
But-
it's not perfect, but yeah, I was very pleased with the overall picture.
But yeah, Jordan was slinging pretty well. I do think that they're having an emphasis on him holding on to the ball a little bit more, just because you can see that there were times where maybe he could have just floated it out of bounds or, you know, threw it away or whatever, but instead he did get sacked a couple of times, which, you know, that's going to happen when you've got nothing flowing downfield. But, you know, 292 overall yards passing and 2 touchdowns. You can't ask for more than, well, I mean, you can obviously ask for more than that, but that's a pretty solid stat line. And everything seemed to be rolling pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and go with my fresh, and I'm going to eat a little bit of krill right now, but it's still early. We're only 2 games with Dontavian Wicks, and he has been so consistent the last 2 games that he looks like a completely different player. I don't know if they upgraded his stickum gel that he's using or you know, duct tape on the hands or whatever it is, but he's pretty well caught everything thrown to him, and that's really helped out the offense. I love the fact that they went deep to Golden. Had it been just a little bit under, Golden been just an inch taller or something, but he'd been gone. It was right there. There'd been no way any of them would have caught him. I did call you out on this in our group chat that we have with Mafia and those guys, that, you know, you were kind of saying that, well, that, you know, he doesn't have his 4.29 speed. That showed he has 4.29 speed just because he blew everybody out of the water and he was way ahead. Again, had Jordan placed the ball a little bit better, there'd been nobody on the field that was going to catch him. Matter of fact, I think that would have showed that he probably could have been a 4.25 guy more than a 4.29 guy. And, you know, I love that they're getting him involved early on in the offense. It shows that they really like what they got with him. I'm hoping that more things are possible because I think he, you know, knock on wood, right now it's still early and everything, but I think he has the stuff to be a true number 1 for this offense. And it's going to be exciting to see how he progresses through the year. And let's put it out there. We actually have a star tight end. How long has it been since we've had this type of tight end in our system with Tucker Kraft? I mean, this is even better than anything Jermichael Finley put up in his short amount of time. You'd have to go back to maybe even a Chimura or a Keith Jackson to say, or even further back. I don't know. I don't remember very many good tight ends, or I mean, great tight ends. We've had good tight ends. You've had like a Bubba Franks, and you've had like a Jermichael Finley, and you've had like I said, a Chimura and a Keith Jackson, but we've never had that Tony Gonzalez, that Antonio Gates, a Gronkowski, a Kelsey, that type of tight end. And you got to think that right now we do. And it's not the guy everybody thought it was going to be in Musgraves. It's Kraft. And this is starting to become that well-rounded offense that we've been begging for several years now.
I think what's really coming to the forefront this season is that this is the culmination of all the years that LaFleur has put into, like, LaFleur and Gutekunst have wanted this offense to be. There was a bit of a road bump the first 4 years LaFleur was here because there was a guy who had a certain way that he wanted things done. You had a Devonte Adams who deserved to play a massive snap share because of how good of a player he is. But LaFleur has always stated that he wants all his guys to rotate in, that his receivers can play every position and do multiple things and all that kind of stuff. And you're finally seeing all those fruits come to bear. Like, I think Dobbs leads the team in snaps, but he's only playing like 60 something percent of them, kind of thing. And you're seeing them go from the same personnel packet, like they're staying in 12, but then you're seeing like Dobbs and Golden are out there, and then the next snap it's Dobbs and Wicks, and then it's Wicks and Heath, and then then they'll go to 11, and then they go Dobbs, Golden, Reed, and then we've long heard LaFleur say what his intentions for this offense were, but getting to see it in full action is really, really gratifying, and it really does get back to his illusion of complexity and all that kind of stuff.
Before you go on a little bit further, just to follow up what you said, according to Pro Football Reference, Dobbs played 74% of the snaps this game.
Higher than I expect. I do think that's partly due to the Reed injury more than anything, but yeah, like you're just seeing this heavy rotation. It's not like the Manning years in Indy where it was like, oh, Marvin Harrison is on the left and Reggie Wayne's on the right, and those guys don't come off the field. Hell, they don't even come back into the friggin' huddle most of the time. So, like, it's just a totally different way of approaching offense. The way that LaFleur's got it going. And on your point regarding Kraft, like, he is like a step away from fully establishing himself as one of the top tier tight ends in this league. And yeah, I've heard, the debates like how important, how good is he? It's like he's not quite Kittle because Kraft is really athletic for a tight end, but he doesn't, when Kittle was
He doesn't
at his
have the
absolute
speed
best.
of a Kittle.
Yeah, Kittle could run away from you on Kittle could legitimately take a slant 50 yards kind of thing. Kraft could do it, but he'll be dragging someone 20 of those yards. Like, it's that kind of difference. Whereas Kittle is like legitimately running away from you. I think, and I'm not saying he's there yet, but Kraft's overall game impact is in like a Gronkowski sense where, you can he can be a good tent post for a lot of your passing attack. And at the same time, you're like, he'll block in your run game kind of thing. And I did think one of the most ironic moments in Thursday's game is when they were talking up his blocking. And then as Al Michaels and Herb Street are talking up Kraft's blocking, they call a screen pass where Kraft is like, that screen should have never happened because Washington sends 3 guys on it, and Kraft's got like I gotta block one, and he does block that guy, but it's like you're talking up the guy's blocking, and it's like it doesn't matter on this play kind of thing. But I agree with you. Wicks has, and I've constantly said people are acting so surprised that he's catching the ball so well this year. And I've said repeatedly since the San Fran game last year, he really has been pretty consistent from that point moving on. A lot of his issues were in the first half of last season, and obviously they probably win that first Minnesota game if he just catches the ball better in that game. And he had a couple of those where a couple games are more comfortable wins or more competitive games kind of thing. But he has been so reliable for them. And it goes back to the credence of what I said. People are like, oh, they must be close to giving up on him. He led the team in targets last season. And I know that Reed missed time, Dobbs missed time, Watson missed time, but you don't just accidentally lead a team in targets if you're if you're to the point like a lot of people said that like, oh, like they've lost trust in him. They never did. He was always running a lot of their primary receiver routes and stuff because of the separation he gets. And, like JT O'Sullivan, Mike Wall, they've all put out video of like how good of options he's giving to Love on any given play because of the way he can separate at the break point. And it's just really good to see him gain his confidence back because, yeah, like, and it's not like he's wide open on any of these plays or they're all different sorts of reception. Some of them he's thumbs in, on the sideline, middle of the field was a lot of Detroit. So good start to the season and just really good to see. Those are our ones for offense. I'll say that we're both going to have ones for the defense. I'll go with one. I think there's two low hanging fruits on either side of it. The run defense. If I told you that the Green Bay Packers, forget the Parsons trade, whether it is or isn't made, if I told you, knowing what was on the schedule, that the Green Bay Packers would go into the 2025 season and get through those Detroit and Washington games and not have given up 100 yards total between the two games, you'd be feeling pretty good about yourself, right? And that's the matter of the fact is that the Green Bay Packers are they must be running away with the league lead in terms of rush yards allowed. You're well under 4 yards a carry. You gave up 2.7, and I think it was Ryan Wood who put out an article where it's like he didn't gain a first down on any of his runs. Like he had the 1 8-yard scramble, but even that one, it was one of those where they shoot him over to the sideline and they kind of were like not wanting to get a penalty, and so he kind of like sashayed his way up for a couple extra yards kind of thing. But to hold a guy who was like just short of 900 rushing yards last season, under 30 on you held him to 17 yards on 7 carries, doesn't get a first down at all. That's just a phenomenal effort on defense from a team that had legitimate questions to how they would defend the run this season, pre or post Parsons acquisition.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree with all that. It's surprising, but it also shows that the pass rush is really helping things out because, or I mean, let me take that back. The offense doing its job is helping the pass rush and the run defense, because by putting themselves up higher with the score, that means the other team can't move in and start using their run game. They have to set up and start going after using the pass because they're so far down. And, if you remember right in the preview, I said the one thing that I was worried about was what they were going to do with Jaden Daniels running, and they handled it perfectly. They had a spy out there. They have 2 very athletic linebackers that was able to track him down for the most part. They had Micah Parsons going. I'm to the point that we're probably going to start coming up with a nickname for Micah Parsons. And I can't remember who said it on Blue Sky, but they were like, they don't feel like they can call him Parsons or Micah, that it's just his name is Micah Parsons. There's no space between it. It's just Micah Parsons. But, this is the defense we've been asking for years. Like I was just talking about with Tucker Kraft, I don't remember a defense this dominant so far since maybe 2010, the 2010-2011, the Super Bowl season. Maybe.
I think it goes back to 96 because 2010 was an overall statistically really good defense, but they had those moments where you're like, they're kind of struggling, and I know that was with the offense because the offense got clunky at times, kind of thing.
Well, I don't want to give them 96 yet because we are still.
But I say it goes more to that direction where 2010 you're like, I think this is a good defense, whereas 96 you're like, this defense is fucking dominant and scary, kind of thing. And that's where I think 2010 is the one where you look back on it fondly and you're like, that was a loaded, great defensive unit, kind of thing. But in the moment, it was kind of like, are they going to do it? And you have the clip of Greg Jennings in the Super Bowl. They've done it every time, but I hate making them do it. I hate putting it on their back one more time, kind of thing and stuff. And that was legitimately the feeling of that 2010 defense where it's like, I think they'll do it, but I wish the offense scored one more time. Whereas 96, it was like, oh yeah, Reggie's going to just go kill someone, kind of thing. And that's the parallel.
Like I said, I don't want to quite give it the 96 feel yet.
We're in week 2.
We're in week 2. We're only that far. But at least with the 2010-2011 season, you could see this type of defense being played. They had the guys in the back that were making plays. They had the guys up front that were making plays. It was a cohesive unit. And that's what we're seeing with this defense right now is it's a cohesive unit. Maybe you could bring the 2014, 2015 defense in a little bit, but they still had their issues there. Right now, week 2, this has been a really dominant defense. Just look at the score today. The Lions destroyed the Bears 52 to 26 or something like that. And Goff was over 300 yards, and their rushing attack was just nuts, and they couldn't do that in week 1 because they didn't have time. They didn't have any of the ability to get that run in week 1. And that was with a Micah Parsons that had only been there a week, that was running on a limited playbook. Wait until they meet again later in the season. I'm looking forward to that matchup here pretty soon. But just to kind of roll my crow eating in for the week, and I'm just doing it for the week, so it's only like a portion of crow. This isn't a full crow thing. But Keyshawn Nixon, I have to give Keyshawn Nixon his credit, because 5 legit pass breakups in a game is, though it's not unheard of, it's not common. Normally you see 1 or 2 or, at most 3 pass breakups, but he had a legit 5 pass breakups. Now, here's my caveat with that. Is he playing top-notch corner ability because he's that? Or is he playing it because his front 7 is giving him time and the ability to play that? Now, that's why I said I'm only taking maybe a wing off this crow and eating it, because, we still got a long season to go. We got a lot better teams that we got to face down the stretch, and we'll see what happens. But right now, week 2, we're living in the moment. He's playing lights out himself.
Yeah, and to that point, I think the bigger caveat is, like, I do think most of those were legitimate, good, clean plays. He had a couple where it was kind of on the border of, like, should he have been called for some kind of
Right.
hold, PI, whatever. Not the one that Commanders fans are pointing at, the one where, like, he punched the ball out of Noah Brown's hand because, like, they're like, oh, he's holding. I'm like, he has a right to that piece of turf where he's standing. And if Noah Brown comes and tries to do the Reggie White hump move to him, there is no ref who is in their right mind who should throw a flag on Nixon for anything in that regard, because you cannot go on in you cannot fully extend your arm to shove away the DB in that regard. And also, Noah Brown, catch the friggin' ball. Like, you had it in your hands, kind of thing. But yeah, I agree. Nixon deserves his flowers for coming in after what was honestly a rough week 1 for him. He looked lost in coverage a couple times. I was concerned that we were seeing the loss of a step in real time, because he had a couple of those plays where he's impressed man on Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he just doesn't even, like, mirror him off the line of scrimmage, kind of thing. The one that comes to mind is the 3rd and 5 slant that he gave up, and he just, like, he doesn't move until he's trying to tackle St. Brown. But this week you saw him much more fluid in coverage. He looked a lot more aggressive. And I agree with you. He's not, like, I know people are going to be like, they were fine without Jair. He's not Jair. Just this front truncates how much time they have to cover. You can squat on routes more. The ultimate proof in that is Xavier McKinney coming out and saying he's bored on the back end, because the plays just don't even have a chance to get to him. And the ultimate way you can see that is, like, he would have interceptions if a team was more aggressive pushing the ball down the field against the Packers. The Lions and Commanders have just totally punted that part of their playbook. They're like, we cannot block these guys, so we are not going to bother putting the ball in harm's way by exposing our quarterback. Forget a 7-step drop. We're not even doing 5-step drops. It's 3 steps, and this is the part of the game that is really, really underrated in terms of Halfley coming from a lot of college background, in that his pass rush is so good. It's like he's coaching at a top tier power, I guess, 4 conference team, playing like a directional university, where it's like, it's those games where it's like those teams are going to empty their trick plays on you kind of thing, or it's everything's going to be a shrouded wide receiver screen kind of situation. And so it helps that Halfley is so versed in stopping those kind of teams where it's like he was like, okay, we play a team like the Bengals, which we'll get into that. There's a little aside. We have to talk about that game coming up. But, a team that's known for pushing the ball downfield. He's like, okay, we'll come out with a game plan to take that away. But if after 3 drives, it's apparent they don't even want to do that and they're just going to college BS offense, he's like, well, I know how to stop that. And I think that's a really underrated aspect of Halfley's just prowess with how he's calling this defense is like, Detroit got a little bit of the take what they're giving you from Green Bay. Halfley just snuffed the life out of this Commanders offense for the majority of this game. And unfortunately, it was my guy Quay who got shook out of his jock by the corpse of Zach Ertz. But if you look between the start of this game to the Zach Ertz touchdown, Halfley and this defense were snuffing the absolute life out of this Commanders offense. Daniels was seeing ghost after the first 2 plays. This offensive line, like Josh Connerly is probably going to be a good player, but this is one of those, you just burn the tape from this game. The ultimate play in that regard is the fact that Washington gets a dynamic return from Deebo Samuel to open the second half, and they end up missing a field, they doink a field goal. And the third down play in that sequence is Parsons blowing off the ball. Connerly basically false starts. That's uncalled. He draws a hold on Connerly despite Connerly false starting and still gets part of a sack. He literally only doesn't get a full sack because Connerly is hanging on to him. And so that just shows, like I said, that play encapsulated the night in a whole for what Green Bay was doing to the Commanders.
For sure, and we'll talk about that in our next segment a little bit more. But I mean, you can see that he is a dominant force when a longtime All-Pro left tackle is even jumping early just to try to stop him. And we kind of talked about that where, when Tunstall was still on, or Tunstall, I'm thinking Billy the Kid Tunstall, where Laramie is still on the Texans, and, Micah didn't quite have a good game against him. Was it because Micah was just coming back from injury, or was it because Laramie was holding up well against him? This shows maybe that it was more that Micah was having a hard time coming back from the injury, because, like I said, it got to the point where even Laramie was jumping or false starting just to try to keep up with him. But, man, there are so many good things in this game that it's hard to stop talking about them. But unless you've got any other glaring ones, maybe we should jump to our next one.
We'll just move along to the next.
What's this stale shit?
So I'm going to go with it, and I've already foreshadowed this a little bit. And even though I like that this team is playing as complete as it is, we're still running flat in the third quarter. And I don't know if it's because I can't even give examples. I don't know what it is, to the point where the floor is just calling basic play calls in the third quarter. And it just, even in the full second half, because it's like, then the Reds, I almost pulled a U. Then the Commanders started coming back, and it's like, okay, well, I know they're not going to win this game, but at least make it look good.
Right. And I agree with you. Yeah.
And when you see the Lions coming out and throwing a 52-pointer up against the Bears, it's like, this Packers team could do the same exact thing against the Lions, could have done the same exact thing against the Commanders, but we didn't. 27 points each game, or 27 plus each game. So what was the total score? I can't even remember. This was a rough one for me because I was stuck at work and I was trying to have to watch it off the phone. So it was really rough. Yeah, 27 points by the Packers this week, where they could have easily had a 52-point game this against the Commanders, but they like let up off the gas. They didn't put the kill shot in. They didn't put Larry's dagger. You know, it just, I want to see this be a complete game from start to finish. Leave it all out on the field, put up as many points as you can. I don't know if LaFleur's afraid that you only get so many points in a season, so he doesn't want to empty the tank out early and not have enough left in the later portions of the season, or if he's too afraid to open up the playbook because he doesn't want to put it on film for other teams to scout on him, or what. But it's just, that's why it's not moldy right now, but it is getting kind of stale that, you know, we eventually let the opposing team start coming back a little bit to make it look like it was a hard-fought game.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's a little funky to see, like I said, and I agree with you. It was borderline stale for me. I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt that it's because of how the schedule is coming out this season. You've got, you combine the fact that, like I said, 2 games in 5 days, 2 games in 5 days. I know that a lot of people are going to be sick of hearing me say that, but when you come out of the gates, no one plays in preseason anymore. I know the Packers, I do think that was part of the reason LaFleur is like, you guys are going to play in preseason this season because we start off the season against Detroit and we got to turn around and play a game on Thursday. And there was that stat where I think early last season, the first 6 Detroit opponents were 0-6 in their game following it or some shit like that or whatever it was. It wasn't until and I think our game didn't count because we had the bye after we played Detroit. It was like teams that played Detroit and then had to play the following week. They were like 0-6 or some crap like that kind of thing. I think that it's hard to put a true like, oh my God, like there's something wrong with what LaFleur's doing, because I do think he's playing the schedule. But also I agree with you in the sense that if you just put some of these games away in the third quarter, like that's also how you can like protect players. Like
Right, you can
like,
start putting in your backups and not have to worry about anybody getting injured.
And where I'm pushing on it too is like he went for it on 4th down in plus territory on the opening drive instead of trotting out McManus for a 48-yard field. He took a few shot play. Even on the last drive that mattered, where they end up kicking the field goal to go up 27-10, he calls a shot play out of timeout, out of the turnover on downs kind of thing. So like to me, that's proof that like the aggression is there. And like you said, it's like that's why I had it in my fresh, because I was like, when LaFleur and the team were like, we gotta go get a score kind of thing, they put the hammer down and we're like, we're just gonna drive efficiently down the field and get a touchdown. But it is in the back of my mind because it has been a thing in the LaFleur era where it's like, I know you don't have to, but if you can win by one more score, why don't you? There's nothing illegal about it, kind of thing. And I know,
and that's why I said, I know it's funny, but it's like LaFleur plays like there's only so many points he can score in a season. He doesn't want the tank to run dry.
And in his defense, I don't know if he's a superstitious man or not, but his offensive kind of have run out of points in all of his playoff losses. You look at it, like, if he is a superstitious man, he's like, oh shit, like I was allotted 600 points this season and I ran out of them in our biggest game of the season kind of thing and stuff. So who knows? Like you said, it's something we can laugh about. And at the same time, I'll never apologize for a win. But it is that whole, like, I understand wanting to, like, play the clock, play the percentages, all that kind of stuff, but why not get yourself that one more score of cushion? So I agree. I'm not as concerned as some other people are, and you're definitely not in this camp, because I see some people that are like, oh my God, he's overly conservative, all that kind of crap. And I'm like, no, like, he was calling an aggressive game plan, like, throughout the first half. And like I said, even when they were up 24-10, like he went for the night shot out of that turnover on downs and stuff. And it's like, okay, like just do that earlier in the end. And I do think another turning point in this game was, which I'm sure will come up in another segment, is they were going for a night shot in the first half on that drive where Fitzpatrick gets called for a god awful holding call, and and they like they had the momentum at that point, and it looked like they were gonna go down and just hot knife through butter for another touchdown kind of thing. And then you get called for a hold, that drive falls apart, and then the offense kind of falls into a malaise until they put it back up 24-10 and stuff. So I agree with you. It's in the back of my mind. It's one of those where I just held it out of still because I do want to see how this team looks in week 3, 4, and especially after the bye in week 6. But it is one that's like you said, this is a not like a last year, this year thing. This is a LaFleur's tenure in Green Bay thing. So I agree that's what pushed it towards stale for me. But I the schedule itself kept it out of there for me. As far as my stale, it's just going to be the run game, and I just had hoped to see a little more from it. They're behind the 8 ball because you go into this game missing Banks and Tom. I'm not as harsh on Belton as some people were. I just do think that, everyone's like, they score on the drives with Kennard, but I'm like, Belton did do some solid to good things in the game, especially as a run blocker. I just think that, hey, if Love's throw is more on time to Golden or a little bit, a couple yards deeper in the end zone, that whole, they would have scored on the opening drive with Belton in at right tackle. I know his holding penalty is part of the reason they didn't, but such is life kind of thing. And it's a little bit of everyone. Just a couple guys missing a couple blocks, a couple misreads by Jacobs. And the reason I have it in stale is if they were just 5% better on the ground, I think people are more okay with how LaFleur has called the second halves of these 2 games because they're just a little bit more efficient, a little bit better score, a little bit better moving the ball to where it's like, okay, like the game, like LaFleur playing the percentages is, what's it called, is a little bit more ingratiated for playing the long game with how he's handling the game situation. So little bit of frustration, little bit of stale with the run game. And so that's my stale for week 2. Otherwise, this is one where partly because it's so early in the season, partly because I just don't have too much to like. I don't want to say I don't want to nitpick about this game, but they're just playing relatively so well that I'm okay with how they're doing. That it's most important to me you're securing these wins, but they're wins with teach tape that you can go back to and be like, there is easy ways that we can squeeze 20% more production on either side of the ball to make these into just absolute lopsided blowouts. And I'm very okay with that in week 1 and 2. You don't want to peak in September. You want to be peaking going into and through the playoffs. And I think that from a coach's point of view, the coaching staff is very pleased that it's like, you guys are doing well, but you still got to listen to us in film kind of thing. Like that, you guys aren't on autopilot yet and stuff. So that's where I'm at with the lack of stale through the first couple weeks.
Right, and there is a lack of stale on it, and I am going to throw Belton out there as a stale just because I think he is struggling, and I kind of not really got into it with anybody, but did say something to a guy on the Elon machine that, they were talking about, why not just pull him? Why not just pull him? And this guy was saying, this is why you need to do it. This is why I can't remember how the exchange went, but I came back and said, you need to, if he's struggling, because you don't want him to get the baseball or the football equivalent of the baseball yips. Because eventually, if he continues to get beat, if he continues to struggle, it's going to get into his head and he's not going to be able to come out of it. So you sit him down, you talk with him, you use that game film during the week saying, hey, try this, hey, try that. You've got a couple of veterans on the team that you can have him sit down with and they can go over stuff with him. You can bring people in and say, hey, do this, hey, do that. I also wonder if he's struggling a little bit because he doesn't want LaFleur jumping on his ass anymore. But I can't remember who posted the picture in our group chat, but showed that he's even got a weird stance on some of the plays.
Yeah, it was
And
me. He's a little bit cockeyed in his stance where his hips and his knees are pointing, to use driving terms. He's pointed at 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock on his stance. And you can have for him as a right tackle, you can have your right foot back, but you want to still have your shoulders, your hips, your knees square to the line of scrimmage. And it's sort of like pre-opening the barn door for the sake of saying, and you don't want to give, because that just sets you up for inside moves, and that's where he gets into trouble with holding. And I get it. He played on the left side in college. I don't know if he played on the right side when he was, prior to his senior season, but I agree. Like, it was borderline stale for me. It wasn't so much Belton for me that was the stale. You saw that Kennard gave you good snaps in week 1, and like I said, like I keep going back to 2 games in 5 days. I don't understand why you tried to go with such a big brain move to start the rookie and all that kind of stuff. Like, just stick with Kennard. You got good movement in the run game. And like you said, on one side, you can't let him go and just get punked, because then it's like, oh shit. Then it's like, the do I belong at this level? Do the coaches hate me for leaving me out here kind of thing? And also, like, if you go in and you're like, we're going to rotate series with you, you can't just after the first series be like you can't, it's the Holmgren, like it's that clip of Holmgren early in Favre's career, like switch the quarterback. Like, never mind, but he's got to know he's screwing up out there kind of thing. And so on both sides of it, it's like when you make that decision, you're stuck with it no matter how it turns, unless he does something so egregious that it's like, oh, like you just severely hurt the team with multiple dumb personal foul penalties. It's like you kind of got to let him take his lumps to a certain degree. And that's where I'll agree with you. That side of it, I'm kind of like, it's sort of stale that it's like, you knew you had a solid thing with Kennard. I know he hasn't been here that long, but he is an NFL vet. So just ride that hot hand and stop trying to be too big brain, galaxy brain kind of thing.
I wonder if they were in too much of their head thinking that they were maybe outsmarting themselves, because if you kind of look at how Belton came, it's similar to how Elton Jenkins came, where they played a certain position. They both were older for a NFL prospect. They thought maybe we're going to get lightning in the bottle twice if we just throw him out there and get some play time out of him. I'm not saying he's this horrible draft pick and he's not going to make anything, but like I said, you don't want him to get yipped. You don't want him to start overthinking too much, because then that's when the penalties and the stupid mistakes start coming in. But why didn't they throw Morgan out at right tackle and put Belton in at left guard? There's a bunch of questions you can ask on that. So again, that's why it's kind of in the stale, because you're forcing this into things when you don't have to get that cutesy with it. There's a number of other things you can work on for it, but I'm not calling it a bust or anything after
Oh
week
yeah,
2.
yeah. It's not stinky.
I did think of a couple of fresh ones that we didn't get. Just real quick, is the Savion Williams end around was pretty good, and then my boy Malik Heath with the big time catch. But I am going to throw the Savion one in stale, but not because of the play call, not because of the Savion, but because of the equipment guys and the field guys. He fell on his ass. Otherwise, he'd been gone for the touchdown, or at least got him closer to the end zone with it. That was one hell of a play call. That was one hell of a play. And I will talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But that situation a little bit later. But really, I don't have too many other stales.
Yeah, everything
Everybody seemed to play well. The stales that we had were minor just kind of that nitpicking thing on a good team win. So let's jump into the last one, because I do have one that can kind of go moldy, pushing my favorite topic.
It's a moldy cheese.
And I don't know if you have any. Do you have any for a moldy?
Go for it. You go for it first.
Okay, so this rolls into my little bit of my favorite thing with shut the fuck up. And this goes out to old buddy Ross Uglum. And somebody had posted a gif of the Savion end around. And this is what Ross said when it comes to it. Quote, if he's going to do stuff like that, he needs to get out of 83. I'm sorry for doing this again, but it's just the situation. And what he's talking about is if he's going to do these end rounds, and he doesn't need to be number 83. Well, I'm sorry, Ross. It's a fucking number. Get over it. I'm tired of hearing about, oh, well, he can't do this because of this. That was the whole thing with Matthew Golden when he wanted to be 22. It's the whole thing with Micah Parsons when he wanted to be number 1. It's the whole thing with Matthew Golden with being number 0. It's a fucking number. There's no need for it. He was running an end around. He was playing or I guess that was more the Wildcat snap, wasn't it? They were set up in a Wildcat with him. He's a wide receiver. It's not like he's a running back that plays receiver. It's not that he's a wide receiver playing running back. He's a wide receiver. He's not a quarterback. He's not a running back. He's not a fullback. He's not a tight end. 83 is fine for him. If that's what he's wanting, if that's what the Packers wanted him to have, let him have it. It's a fucking number. Get over it. Like I said in my response to it on the Elon machine, if he wants to be 98, let him be fucking 98 for all I care. If he wants to be negative 5,200, let him be negative 5,200. It's a number. It's not hurting anybody. It's not disrespecting anybody. And for somebody to keep harping on these numbers, because I know, Ross, you were one of the big ones when it came to the Matthew Golden numbers. I'm not sure about the Micah because I don't follow you, but I do know people who do follow you. Shut up. I'm tired about hearing about numbers.
Especially for a team with so many retired numbers, so many unofficially retired numbers, and all this BS about who's allowed to wear what, and I agree with you. It gets nauseating really quick, and um the funny thing is so many people were so oh, why did they, forget the number thing. There are so many people just heavily against Savion getting drafted. I'm like, oh, now you all got to pivot to, oh my god, I hate what number he's wearing. That's the more infuriating part to me is oh, you all stay on that side. I know so many of you who were like, why did you pick him? Why would you take him in the 3rd round? I'm like, is it illegal for Matt LaFleur to turn to Goody and be like, that guy can do 17 different things on a given snap on the ball, and I'm not even talking about him running a slant to catch a pass. Excuse LaFleur to. And if anyone questions how much they think of Savion, he was the lone receiver on Kraft's long reception. They're in 13 personnel, one receiver, so that means one receiver's on the field. Savion Williams was the one receiver on the field for that play. And in terms of does he do enough receiver stuff, he drew a defensive hold or an illegal contact penalty. And you can wish-wash over how legitimate it was or whatever. The contact was definitely beyond 5 yards down the field. And I know he's not the most consistent route runner or hands catcher or whatever, but if you get just he is purely a frosting on top of your cupcake player. Anything you get from him is just pure bliss at this point, given that he missed time in the preseason. And you saw highlights of him making catches over the middle of the field. I think he had a couple in the Seattle practices. And then, I'm sure LaFleur is at least a little pissed that he had to unveil the quarterback snap fake pitch to Love thing this early. He was gonna display that at some point because they're definitely setting up the toss back to Love to throw it back to the other side of the field thing. they were gonna unveil that at some point, but I do think there's a part of LaFleur that's like, you guys made me have to use it in the third quarter of week 2 kind of thing and stuff. But yeah, it is one of those like, you got so many of you hated this pick at the time. Do not come back here complaining about what number the dude is wearing because oh, oh my god, LaFleur knows how to use a supremely athletic tall guy who can handle the ball in the backfield. Like, no, like you're right. I'm so irritated that we're even talking about the fact that he's wearing number 83. And also on top of it, like, don't act like you think he's good now. I still remember which ones of you absolutely hated the pick at the time. So yeah.
And I fully admit that as a player, it wasn't that I didn't like what I saw. It just the way they used him at TCU. It was like, what are you going to do with him? That's just Cordero Patterson. But the
Right.
biggest problem I had was there were people talking about him in the first round. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
no, I don't want that in the first round.
I'm
And-
one of the guys who was like, I would take Savion. I had no problems taking him round 3. I was like, you got gold, especially because you got Golden already. That was my one thing is I was like, I liked him as a prospect, but I was like, he cannot be the only receiver you come out of the draft with.
Right.
It can't be him in some 7th round like flyer pick kind of thing either. Like you've got to get. But the fact that you're like, okay, we've got Golden to do 99% wide receiver things, and like Savion doing anything wide receiver oriented is just absolute bonus for this team because he's gonna be like he's come in and he's already shown flashes of being a really good kick returner. I'm still looking for where Bo Melton held on the first kick return of the season, by the way. I'm as upset as Bo was on that. And 2, LaFleur has already started to use Savion as a end-around weapon, and, you know, it almost was a big play the first time around. You know, if he just had slightly smaller feet, he probably gets a first down on the first one. And then the second one, like I said, LaFleur, I'm sure, like I said, he had to show it at some point because that play is setting up like 4 other plays. But the fact that he knows how to, like, the only other guy I think you could have maybe done, there's 2 guys in recent Packers history you could do that, is because they were both quarterbacks at some point in their lives. I guess Wicks, they kind of did it with Wicks. So 3. So Wicks, sort of, Cobb, and Jordy Nelson, our old friend, emergency quarterback 3, Jordy Nelson. So, like, but suffice it to say, I totally agree with you. The crying over numbers stuff, it's been moldy from the jump. And also, it's moldy for me because, like, the amount of you who just absolutely were screaming when Goot made the Savion pick, like, just stay over there. And like you said, it does kind of go into shut the fuck up. My initial moldy is like the refereeing in this game, and it was such like, you know, everyone complains about, oh, like, the players, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I don't know what this referee crew was doing on short rest because my god, they had their heads up their asses for most of this game. Like, I'm not even getting into the whole like, oh, like, Packers fans see what we're saying about Micah Parsons now being held. You know, like, you got Cowboys fans that are going like, oh, you see, we weren't lying. And I agree. Like, an elite player like that is gonna get held more times than it's gonna get called. But like I said, the Fitzpatrick play, he gets called for a hold because 2 Commander players are holding him. And like, that was just a microcosm for how these penalties went. Like, Connerly could have been called for a hold on every other play because, like, the dude was just trying to survive out there. And I have no problems with that. But when they get the egregious ones, you've got to call everyone. There can't be a quota for how many you're allowed to call. Like, if they're bad kind of thing. And then, yeah, like, and then LaFleur having to challenge the Heath call. Like, I get that it was like a bang bang play kind of thing and stuff, but like,
Now I have to ask about that because like I said, I was watching on the phone, so it was really hard. Was that actually a used challenge for LaFleur, or was that one of them where that the booth came in and said that, you know, that expedited challenge that happens, was that a booth thing, or did he have to use
LaFleur
a
had
challenge?
to use it. Like, LaFleur had to use it, and it was it was. I do recommend you go rewatch the game because it's one of those where you and turn the volume up because from that throw, you hear the crowd, and then like everyone thought he was out of like the crowd. You can't see it good, and so you hear the like, oh, and then you see the replay, and you just hear the collective, oh, like, and
I heard it. I mean, I got pretty
yeah,
good speakers on the phone, but
yeah. And so no, it was one that LaFleur had to. And the reason that I give refs crap for this kind of stuff is these sideline catches, there are two refs whose whole job is when the ball starts flying towards the sideline, there are four eyes whose job it is to figure out if guys made a catch on the sideline or if they step out on the sideline. I know that certain situations, especially the stepping on the sideline, the edge of the foot stuff, those are hard. But these kind of ones where it's like he so clearly got both feet down that it's the whole like, are you guys paying attention? Can you guys see that far?
and it's not like he's wearing turf green cleats that it's hard to tell
No.
where the
And
cleat
he's
ends in the
wearing,
field.
yeah, and they're wearing, and it's the whiteout game. They're wearing the white uniform with the white shoes and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that was one where it's like, you guys serious? Like, that stuff gets old really, really fast for me.
I
Another
am going to
moldy.
throw an extra moldy out there because you just reminded me of it.
Okay.
Why are we wearing the whiteout uniforms in the middle of a summer game?
I agree, and I made the joke that like if you want to do the color run, I am a traditionalist. I am very much, and especially like the Packers, they're a very it's a historically known color scheme. Like this is the uniform they've worn since the Lombardi era and all that kind of stuff. I hate when I'm not for alternates kind of thing. I like throwback to the Lambo era ones because I'm like, that's cool. You're honoring your past and all that kind of stuff. But to me, I've always hated the like, oh, let's change up the color scheme for home games and crap like that. I'm so glad the Packers didn't ascribe to the every team needs a black jersey fad that went through all sports leagues and stuff like that.
I don't
But
know
I
how the
agree with you.
Packers would have done it with the black jersey because there's no matchup that they could have. I mean, no color
Yeah,
scheme that they could have put a black into.
yeah, but I agree with you. The white jerseys, it's awesome. But you gotta be wearing that thing, and I get that scheduling is part of it and all that kind of stuff. But like, you've got to wear that in December when it's snowing at Lambeau. Like it
To be a true whiteout.
right. And my counter to it was like, I don't want like I know that I think the teams are required to do a color rush jersey, but I was like, if you're gonna do it in September or October, lean into the Midwest Wisconsin thing and just go either cheddar orange or hunting orange. Like go that full blown like you're in Wisconsin and it's almost the opening of hunting season kind of thing and stuff. And
I
like
wonder if they can't do that.
I know that
Because
there's the
Chicago doesn't even really use like a hunter orange. It has to be a specific orange for them to use.
yeah, I don't I know that they have really weird rules for what they're allowed to do. I thought that the color rush was an allowance for them to just go bananas with whatever they want kind of thing because I do remember that was part of the whole thing with why they don't do the 1920s and 30s team jersey anymore is because the league threw a hissy fit about them using the brown helmets because they're like you can only have one helmet color and the color
Right.
rush is like the one time that they're allowed to wear a different colored helmet. Some, like I said, this is like the numbers thing where it's like, and I do not understand why the NFL is so against it. A multi-billion-dollar production whose sole thing is to churn out an extra dollar from the little man, and I'm like, you're gonna deny your teams the opportunity to suck a couple more, like hundreds of dollars from your fan, and so yeah, that's one where I'm like, and the Packers, I think, went out of their way to be like, we're not doing the 20s and 30s jerseys anymore because the NFL said you cannot have the brown helmet kind of thing. And
But
I
now they
did
can have
appreciate,
that really
yeah,
cool looking one with
yeah,
their
yeah.
throwbacks.
So,
Okay, so I just had this idea. So NFL, Green Bay Packers, listen to me on this one. Come a little bit closer because I know some of you are so old that you can't hear anyway. So what the Packers need to do is have the yellow or the gold jersey, but make it look like cheese. and then on the helmet it looks like cheese, so they can be cheese head helmet and have the same thing for the jersey. And it wouldn't be any harder to do than what they already do with some of their jerseys. It just would look like they're wearing a block of cheddar, or it would look like the cheese hat that they already sell.
And then a step further, guys like Dobbs and Savion who are wearing the concussion helmet, that thing
Make
is
it an
just gonna look
actual.
like, yeah, it's gonna look like an extra big thing of cheesehead. So I agree with you. This just speaks to how well the team is playing. The fact that
We
even on
can't
our
come up with
moldy,
anything.
yeah, and suffice it to say, trust us, listeners, all 40 of you, we are looking for things to be critical about this team for, but also we're not gonna be the ones to sound the five alarm for like, oh my god, they're a little efficient on offense, or oh my god, they're being. They've been overall a really disciplined team through these two games. Like, how many penalties did they have?
Very
So
little.
yeah, like, okay, actually they had 10 this game, and I think that was when like you kind of got like a lot, like you're starting to back up offensive linemen. You've got you're in pseudo blowout mode early in the second half, so you're rotating a lot of extra guys in and stuff like that. So like I said, what's really good about this team is that you've won two games already. You're 2-0 in the conference. You're 1-0 in the division against the team you came into the season with expectations to again win the division. You're a huge step up of everyone else on the conference, except for the Eagles, basically, at this point, who honestly aren't looking that great. And that kind of goes into this whole like you said, you're not crowning this team as equivalent to 96 because it's too early in the season. And at the same time, we're both pumping the brakes on how much we want to, critique or criticize things they're doing wrong because it is, again, so early in the season. You haven't had a standard week between games. The most important thing is that they're winning these games convincingly, and yet there's still room for the coaches to go in and be like, we should be winning it 42-17 or something like that. Like,
And that's
yeah,
my big take out of thing. And I know I've talked enough about it that we should be.
yeah,
There's no doubt about it that this team is showing that they can be winning 42-8 or 42-19, or they are literally putting these guys away by the third quarter and they're playing their backups.
right. And in this game, if Love is like just a hair dialed in better, this game is 41-18, and not even on the back of like, fluff blowout stuff like the Lions were doing to the Bears today, where, that game is 28-14 at halftime, and, Detroit fans can puff their chests all they want. We didn't give up 14 points, and we didn't give up 13. It took an out of body experience for Isaac Tesla to get you guys to double digit scoring in that game. So we are not the same. And I get it. That Thanksgiving game, that to me, that just recalibrates that like they're still danger. The Lions are still dangerous, and you still, you're gonna have to tighten it up to be the better team come, when the teams rematch. And I just want to do some housekeeping in terms of upcoming games for the Packers. The Browns just look like an abject disaster because they're so in the hole with the Deshaun Watson contract. It's hard to say how good they should or shouldn't be, what you should expect from them or not. I hope the Packers don't sleepwalk into that game because it should be a statistical boon for everyone on that defensive front because they are finally getting a team with, they've got some decent weapons in Cedric Tillman, David Joku. You've got Harold Fannin Jr., who has been a lot of fun to watch so far, but Flacco has never been fleet of foot. The Browns' O line is in flux, to be nice, and
I can't
this
think
should be
who's
a
their
game
running backs more.
because Chubb is gone. I think. Oh, it's the guy. It's two rookies. It's the guy Sampson, who's been playing really well, because he's gotten all the carries, and then Quinshaw Junkins, who like was holding out over his rookie contract or whatever the hell, and he's
Or
supposed
didn't he
to
have some legal problems he was dealing with?
something like that too. Yeah, so like just take care of your business. It's your first road game next week, so that's a big one. We'll go into this more in our preview, and I get it. Like that is the hallmark trap game. You're coming off of going to start the season. It's an AFC road game, and the Cowboys are up the following week. So don't sleepwalk into that one. The Cowboys are in all kinds of pain without Micah Parsons. That was to be expected. And then the big one, though, is the game coming out of the bye in week 6. Joe Burrow is basically guaranteed not to play, all but guaranteed not to play the Packers at this point. The reports are coming out now that he suffered a grade 3 turf toe, which just any form of turf toe sounds like the worst thing imaginable to life. And like they're saying that he was seen going to the locker room on one of those like foot scooters that are for guys that like tear their like break multiple bones in their feet kind of thing. So yeah, it's not good for the Bengals. Like, and they got out with a win today on the back of them having Jamar Chase, and so that's going to be a good test. They don't have a good O line, and you know exactly what they're going to try to do on offense. It's these next 3 games. We said it going into this season, where if you can take these first 2 games, this of a schedule sets up so good for the Packers, where they legitimately could be undefeated going into their big games of the season. So it's all on this team just handling their business. And like I said, I do think that's where I don't want to say it's good, but it's kind of important that, LaFleur is having them handle their stuff as they have, where it's like not getting too high and mighty over the quote unquote fake holdout, the fake blowouts and stuff where you're just throwing on teams that have thrown up the white flag early and stuff. But you legitimately could go into, oh, shit. Everyone's eye is on that Eagles game, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So yeah, you're like they're legitimately set up to be 8-0 going into that Monday night football game against the Eagles, and long way off. A lot of things can happen in between there, but you got to be feeling really good about where this team is at right now.
For sure. For sure. I mean, like we keep saying, this is why we don't have a lot of things to talk about in the stale and the moldy portion, because everything is looking good and looking up. But, let's put a pin in this one. I think the Commanders are dead to us to this point.
Yep, absolutely. So thank you so much. Like I say it every week. Please check us out. Check out our website, ohanapackers.org. We're really doubling down on getting more articles up as the season goes along. It's really easy to talk about this team when they're playing so well and have Packers fans on a high. So check out our articles. You can get all of our podcast episodes between us and Cheese Talk Radio are over there. Check out our merch. Support us that way. Please follow us on all your favorite social medias, on Twitter at Ohana_Packers, on Instagram at Ohana Packers Edition. Facebook, please give us some more subscribes there. We want to hit that 100 subscribers count so that we can live stream to Facebook. Excuse me. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting apps. Give us a like and subscribe. And hey,
to kind of give a little bit of housekeeping here, I personally have made the decision that we are going to be dropping new episodes on Mondays and Thursdays. Thursday's going to stay the same. We're going to try bringing it out on Mondays instead of Tuesdays, just to give you a little bit more time to listen to this stuff in between the episodes. Not that you hear one and then, or one drops and then you don't have any time in between the two to listen to them. So Mondays and Thursdays going forward, and other than maybe when they're playing Monday night. Monday night games will be a hard time dropping episodes that morning on victory. So, and I just lost Mike when I was doing that housekeeping. See, even the internet is telling us that we needed to stop.
And the absolute ultimate signs that it's time for us to end this podcast, my internet is going out. So I know Joe was talking about our slight program shift to get these game review episodes out on Mondays nowadays. And yeah, like I said, we're going to kind of fill in the intermediary between the two shows with more articles, get more out that way. But yeah, as we're kind of talking about it multiple times in this episode, please feel free to message either of us or the show on Twitter, on any of the social medias. Give us ideas for things you want us to talk about. Any parts of the Packers that you think deserve extra attention. Anything that you just want to celebrate a little more. Whatever. Those are the things that we want to touch on all of our episodes. So please let us see all those comments. We want to know what you're looking to hear. And on that account, go Pack Go and aloha.